for everyone that's in the room already. I'm going to do a quick vibe check. If we could give me some jazz hands. The higher up, I'm going to assume the better that we're feeling right now. The lower, we're getting out of energy. How are we doing? Where's our vibes? Okay, we've got a mix. Just a reminder, of course, we're taking care of ourselves throughout. If we need to step into the Zen Den or anywhere else that feels like a good, comforting space for you, it's encouraged to do so. If you're like me, you can take a little vacation without ever getting up from your seat. You do you, boo-boo, I like to say. Welcome back. It looks like we're ready to get going. We have one more chair. I feel like the price is right up here. Like, come on down. Who wants the last panelist spot? Nobody. Excellent. Wait, is that good? Wait, I have to do it. We need one more jazz hands. Is the Price is Right run, right? Which is basically Kermit on their way down. Whew. All right, first of all, it's near the end of the day. I want to give one last shout out to our AV crew over here, because honestly, I go to a lot of conferences, and usually by now there's at least, one of those horrible feedback noises. I haven't heard any of those. Chef's kiss to the AV crew. And thank you for the soft lighting. I feel like it's very flattering in the photos. And this was teased earlier, but right after this last session, a lot of us are going to head straight to the Atom Room for the evening event that we have going on there. If you need a little bit of time, we do go right ahead and take it. We're partying until 7. I say partying, but low-key partying. Until 7, so if you need a little bit of time, that is absolutely encouraged. Last seat got taken, so if you were thinking about it, down low too slow on that one. So I'm super excited about what's going on down the hallway at the end, but I'll talk more about that. And just because I promised, if you need one more exciting reason to join us in the Atom Room at the end of the day, you can chat with Mackenzie here behind me. If you want a little more information about the Canadian Journal of Autism Equity and what they're looking for right now, submissions for their 2026 issue on the subject, I just hit a button again, on the subject I'm going from memory on stigma and, I closed it entirely. Do you ever just hit things with your thumb and then it totally blows up everything that you were doing? Yeah, me too. It's really embarrassing when it happens, right? Especially since Mackenzie's not helping me out whatsoever. There we go. Stigma about autism and discrimination against autistics. Thanks for your help, Mackenzie. I say that with love. We were buddies yesterday. I was sitting next to him while I was trying to assemble I have a little 1-foot display in the other room, and I'd taken apart a whole Lego thing for travel, and I didn't bother to bring the instructions. I thought, I'll remember. When will I learn? That is not how this works. So an hour later, I was still trying to figure it out. Thank you to everyone that came by with your supportive cheerleading. I really appreciate it. That's what I do when I'm not on the stage. I actually work, I use Lego to help corporate audiences through that fear and misconceptions they have about bringing in some neuro-inclusive activities. And I like to distract them with the Lego, and then they come to the conclusions themselves that it's not nearly as scary as they think it's going to be. So if you want to hear a little bit more about that, I can't shut up anyway. So come chat with me, because I'll love to tell you how a few tiny bricks in the right hands can bring on some big changes. All right, enough about me. I'm going to hand the stage back over to my friend Allie here, who can't wait for me to give her back the microphone. So bringing on Key Area 3, some very exciting stuff to talk about. And this segment is sponsored by Autism Ontario. And if you haven't popped by the Autism Ontario booth, they have the greatest little swag pens that kind of look like something out of Nickelodeon in the early 2000s. Like this could be on Rugrats. It is the cutest thing in the world. Anyway, that is your MC distraction for this segment, so I'll hand it back over to Allie Garber.
I actually thought the pen looked like Forky. I don't know if anyone remembered Forky from Toy Story 4, wasn't it? That was the best. Thank you so much and welcome back, everyone. Funny, I just realized there's a teleprompter here that shows what's on the screen, and the last time I was arching my neck to read that, so we all live and learn. I did have a bit of an intro written for today, and we are going to I'm just going to ask for the tech team's help to flip through the actions that are identified for this priority area: advancing data collection, public health surveillance, and research that benefits autistic Canadians and their families. But I'm going to deviate a little bit because I just want to talk about the discourse around this topic that has taken place over the last week and a half. I'm not a researcher or a medical professional. I go to Google for that. But I do think that we are in such good, capable hands with the representatives that we have on this panel today. I speak as a family member of an autistic loved one. And the last week and a half has been very, very heavy. And I know the amazing John spoke about it this morning as well. But I've been helping to provide communications support for the summit. And through all of the work that was being done, I just want to acknowledge the team at the Alliance because it was really heavy over the last week and a half. And I spoke with Deepa and our colleague Nicholas, I think a week and a half ago, and we said we need to put out a statement. We need to show support and speak out against this rhetoric that is taking place. And Deepa, God bless her, I'm sorry, I'm going to put you on the spot here, quickly provided some bullets for a statement that we were able to share. And then the next morning I woke up to this, as with Deepa always does, like this frenetic, messages of, I've also written an op-ed, as Deepa does. And, we ended up submitting this piece to the Globe and Mail, but with the election going on, we knew it was going to be an uphill battle to try to get featured in there. But this morning I said to our team, I said, I'd really like to be able to share this opinion piece with everybody at the summit. So we do have it up on the Autism Alliance blog. And hopefully you'll take from it what I did, which is that the Alliance is a phenomenal champion. We don't just have representation from some of the most talented and brightest scientific minds. But I look around this room, and I'm not going to get emotional, but I look around this room and I see friends that I've had for many years. Rebecca, Corey, Mackenzie. And this is the first year I got to bring my son, Hugh, who's 15. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity that I got to do that because the last week was very hard. And it was the toughest parenting moment I've had where I just sit Hugh down and explain to him some of the things that were being said. Because the entire month, Autism Acceptance Month, we had been reminding him of how treasured he is, how incredible he is, how his differences make the world a better place. And that's not cliche. I mean it because he's made our family a stronger family. Earlier this month, he had written a piece for Autistics Aloud, which is a great publication. I know Autism Ontario also has a fantastic publication as well, and CJE, where he shared what it meant to him to be autistic. And it was so empowering and so motivating. And so to sit across from him and have to let him know what was out there in the media, how autistic people were being characterized, was very, very tough. So Deepa, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for taking the time to do what you did. And I hope it's okay, instead of reading the action items, I'm just going to throw things all over the place here. I'd like to just read a couple paragraphs from Deepa's piece. And again, you can find it on the Alliance's website. The priority area actions are behind me, and we'll get into that with the panel. Deepa writes, as headlines in the United States reignite polarized conversations about the rising prevalence of autism, Canadians have an opportunity and a responsibility to take a more thoughtful path forward. We must counter the fear and controversy with facts and care. In Canada, we lack consistent national data on needs of autistic people, how their needs change over time, and where they may face the greatest barriers to care, education, and inclusion. Without this information, decision makers are left guessing. And when they guess, it's the most marginalized who fall through the cracks. Deepa goes on to say, 800 words later, you really need to read the piece. At its best, data can help us build systems that see people fully, plan better, and respond more humanely. At its worst, it can flatten complex lives into simple statistics used to justify inaction, or more dangerously, give credibility to conspiracy theories and long-debunked science. Prevalence rates are not a crisis, they are a call to action. If we want a Canada where autistic people can live full, connected, and meaningful lives, we must start by knowing who we're serving and act on that knowledge with fulsome policies, neuro-affirming healthcare and education, and inclusive practices, not fear. That's why we use autism data. That's why how we use autism data matters just as much as collecting it. 10 years ago, I wrote what was an open letter to RFK Jr. He had been spouting the same rhetoric that he spouted last week, and I published it on my friend's blog. And I said in that letter that I had hope for the future, because I know that my son is going to be surrounded by community and love and optimism. And as he sat up on the stage last night presenting and feeling no fear that he was in a safe place to share his views and that people would listen, it was clear that hope is much stronger than the fear that is being pushed out there. So thank you for allowing me a few minutes to just say my piece. And thank you, Deepa and the Alliance, for always amplifying the voices that need to be heard. Okay, so this is not my panel discussion, but John has never given me a mic again. So we're talking about autism data, and certainly it's been in the spotlight the last few weeks. So this priority area looks to better understand how we can amplify the incredible work we're doing within the public health surveillance and research space, which requires us to address the short-term funding challenges and how to address the shortcomings in representation, where some data sets may overrepresent particular groups or jurisdictions and are not reflective to our current geographic, economic, and cultural diversity. So I'm going to get right into introductions, and I'm not going to tell you to be brief because I wasn't. But if we could start off, Deepa, I'll hand it over to you. If you could introduce yourself and just explain your role in the autism ecosystem.
I think by now most people know, but thank you, Ali. I didn't know she was going to do that, and I almost feel like my job on this panel is done. I'm Deepa. I'm honored to be here and humbled to be here with these incredible experts. I'm a researcher as well. My training and background are in population health data research, and I'm a mom. I'm a mom of a neurotypical kiddo, and I'm really proud mom of a neurodivergent kiddo. And so when this was all happening, it was truly from our hearts that we had to use our skill set and apply it and bring that heart to our skill set and write that. So feel free to check it out or pass it around on social media, and thank you, Ali, for that.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Melanie Penner. I am a developmental pediatrician and a senior clinician scientist at Holland Bloorview Kids Rehab in Toronto, and also an associate professor at the University of Toronto. I use data in many ways as a researcher. I trained as a health services researcher, and I really thought that much of my life was going to be spent working with administrative data. And very little of it has, because the availability, the reliability, the validity of our administrative data for autism varies from province to province, and within mine is certainly lacking. And so I am up here as a frustrated health services researcher who wants to be doing much more, but also someone who is very interested in finding innovative solutions.
Hi, everybody. I'm Evdokia. I'm a child neurologist by training. I'm a senior clinician scientist also at Holland Bloorview and prof at the Department of Pediatrics at University of Toronto. And I'm wearing an extra hat, which may be of interest to this discussion. I'm VP of Research and the director of the Bloorview Research Institute, which is the research institute affiliated with the University of Toronto that is dedicated to pediatric disability. And I use data to try to understand how neurodiversity comes about from our brains to our bodies, what it means, what are the implications for the many different versions of being different that exist, and how we use that information to provide personalized solutions as a scientist. And as a VP of research, I am spending my time these days trying to figure out, as Melanie said, technical solutions and partnerships that would allow us to overcome the inherent problems that exist in our existing data sets, to make sure that we use data in ways that truly contribute to a better life for autistic people and people with other developmental differences.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie Salt. I am a research associate with the National Center for Autism Collaboration. I'm also a assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry at McMaster University. I am an autism researcher, and much of my work these days is focused on autistic adults. And specifically, I do qualitative research, meaning I talk a lot to people, but I also listen a lot. And we talk about generating data, not necessarily collecting data, but I talk to a lot of autistic people about their experiences, and then I distill those down into things that policymakers can work with to affect change. And I'm also the editor-in-chief of the Canadian Journal of Autism Equity, so I talk all autism all the time.
And my name is Stelios. You can think of me as Mackenzie's friend. So I'm also from McMaster University and McMaster Children's Hospital. I'm a member of the Autism Alliance of Canada for many, many years. We're going to talk a lot about the technical aspects of data and evidence. I'm especially interested in how we can use data and evidence to advocate for everything that you've been discussing over the past couple of days. So this idea of evidence-informed advocacy at all levels of government and community and other institutions.
Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to start off, and I am going to pick a couple people to answer each of the questions that I have. Also, I do want to give more time for table discussions, so I'm going to try to keep us on track as best as possible, again, after I took up the majority of the time at the intro. So the priority area of the National Autism Strategy focuses on surveillance and data collection, and that's become a hot topic across North America. We are seeing rising autism prevalence rates getting a lot of attention, but numbers alone do not tell the whole story. So what do these prevalence rates really mean, and how does this kind of data actually make a difference in the lives of autistic people and their families? In the Canadian context, why is it so critical that we collect accurate and representative data? And what should that data actually help us understand? Deepa, I'm going to start off with you, if that's okay.
Sure. Okay, so the rising prevalence rates of autism are not a crisis. They reflect real progress in improvements in awareness, in screening, in diagnosis, which Mel and Evdokia can speak to. we're identifying more autistic people, especially those who have been historically overlooked. Girls, gender diverse individuals, racialized communities, and the scientific understanding of autism has also expanded over the years, and it now better captures the full diversity of neurodevelopmental experiences. We need data. We need data to inform policy. It's the foundation of good policy. It's something that we need to think about and how to bring people who are not experts in data and who may not understand some of the complexities of it, but how do we all sort of work together so that it isn't something that is feared and it isn't something that is weaponized, but we work together to really think about how are we collecting it, what are we using it for, and how are we messaging it, so it's actually a tool versus something that can be misinterpreted.
Yeah, I agree with everything that Deepa has said. I think for many of us who have been in these rooms now for a few years, we're very used to autism policy that is reactive. And wouldn't it be such a treat to have autism policy that could be a bit more proactive? So we're not just always playing catch up, but we're planning for the future. And to me, that's where the importance of accurate data comes in. That's why we need data from all of our communities, including and particularly communities that have not been sufficiently represented in the past. I'm reminded of the name of the sociodemographic data collection initiative that started in Toronto, and it's called We Ask Because We Care. And I think that it speaks to the importance of building trust with communities, that you are going to use their data responsibly, that people will know what's happening with those data, and that the results should also be communicated back to those communities as well.
And Toki, I'm going to end with you, and we'll go to the next question for Mackenzie.
Okay, so endorse everything that has been said until now. I would say there is data about numbers, and that's important because we need to plan our service sectors, whether it's health or education or school, to be able to meet the needs of the population that we are committed to support. But the numbers don't tell us what people need, right? They tell us how many people need, but they don't tell us what people need. And so the additional challenge in our data landscape in Canada is how we link data from numbers to places where we understand something about needs. And so one challenge is how we link our health data to our social services data, to our education data, to understand who are these people that are counted in these numbers and what their needs are. The other possibility, the other desire we have is to link the data across the different provinces to see whether the same kid moving from one province to another, how would they be optimally served? The same family, how would they be optimally served? The same aging autistic person, what kind of health sector can optimally meet their needs? So we need data that goes across the different jurisdictions we have created to learn what types of systems actually behave and for whom, what are the good things about the systems we have built and what are the bad things and who's left out. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we need to think about data that helps the workforce planning, if you like. So there is the data that specifically speaks to the characteristics of the kids and their families and the aging adults and so on. But it's also the data that we need to say, how many healthcare providers, how many special ed teachers, how many of what discipline do we need in a particular area to optimally serve a population, right? So our government, our policymakers need to be able to use data to properly make decisions about servicing or meeting the needs of a population we care about. So we have lots and lots of data needs. We have data risks, and they have been already articulated. There is nothing magical about data. It's just information. You can use information well. You can use information badly. The information itself is not the problem. The problem is who has access, what they do with it, and who they have impact on. So we need to talk about risks. We need to talk about the representation that was just brought, like we're making decisions based on this data. If all people, Canadians, are not represented in the Canadian data sets, then how can we make decisions about all Canadians, right? And then we have biases in our data. We could make actually the wrong decision, or we may reach the wrong conclusion if we don't have representative data that represents the diversity of Canadians when we make decisions for Canadian people. So I would say it's a very exciting space. It's heartbreaking what's happening right now in the world stage, and converting a conversation about something potentially very promising and exciting to something really scary for people. So I would say we have to claim it back. He cannot have that much power. We cannot allow this man to have that much power, right? The fact that he has done this for the last few weeks, of course, we need to address it and talk about it, and we cannot pretend it's not traumatic and harmful, but we also need to say this is not the conversation we're having, and actually spend our time and have the conversation that needs to be had to actually see the potential of data in improving or facilitating a good life for all autistic people.
Thank you so much. Very well said. And I think you're right. This is an opportunity, the highlight of the conversation that's taking place, to really identify Canada's strengths. And so we've talked a bit about some of the gaps. And so Mackenzie and Stelios, I'm going to turn to you to ask you, in this priority area of the National Autism Strategy, what are some of Canada's unique strengths, whether in infrastructure, resources, existing networks, and how can we better leverage these strengths to advance the implementation of the strategy in ways that truly support autistic people and their families? So, Mackenzie, are you comfortable starting first?
Yeah, I'll start. One of the great things that we have in this country is we have a lot of great people. We have a lot of great researchers, we have a lot of great advocates, we have a lot of great people doing great work. And one of the things that, and many of these people collaborate often. I've collaborated with everybody on this panel in various capacities in the last several years. And I've collaborated with many of the people in this room. And I think we need to be collaborating more. We need to be collaborating across provinces and across regions. Because it's very easy to get siloed into your clinic, your province, your university committee, your locality. But we need, looking at a national strategy, we need to be national in scope. And so I think there's also a lot of passion and a lot of drive from everybody in this room and beyond this room for helping autistic people. And this opens doors for researchers when you don't have, for example, some of the things that Evdokia was talking about, when you don't have this sort of top-down pressure to suppress that, there is a lot of gumption and a lot of want to move things forward, which from a researcher perspective, it's always great to work with other people and do things that will push things forward. So great people, great networks. We should be networking more and create a more national scope where great people can work together doing great work to improve the lives of autistic Canadians.
Thank you. Stelios, would you like to add to that?
So I completely echo the comments. I'm just going to add one little piece, and I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here. So for many, many years, when we see challenges in the system, one of the things that we do is we blame government. Now, there's definitely responsibility, right, and challenges there, but I want to take this opportunity and just say that I've observed that over the last few years, there's been great progress in partnerships between researchers, like my colleagues up in the stage, between the Alliance, between some of the provincial organizations, with government people. So we have champions within government. I'm not talking about politics now. I'm talking about people who work with us, who are beginning to use data to shape meaningful policy. And I think that's an area that we need to build on. And there's several examples that many of my colleagues can share with you, and hopefully we'll have the opportunity to do that in our discussion. But I think stronger systematic partnerships with governments at all levels, where the voices of the people in this room, and also those who are not in this room today, can be heard and can be used to direct policy at all levels and all kinds of services and supports.
Thank you. Mackenzie, I'm just going to go back to you for a second, because you mentioned in your introduction that you are an autistic researcher, so you do bring a unique and very valuable perspective to this work. So in your view, why is co-creation in research so important, not just in theory, but in practice? And for autistic individuals or families who are short on time and navigating complex lives, why is it still worth engaging in research? What's the real value of their involvement for themselves and for the broader community? And I realize that's a mouthful that I just gave you, so let me know if you need a reminder of the follow-up questions.
I may get you to repeat parts of that later.
Absolutely.
For the first part, let's talk. So I wear many hats, as do many of the people in this room. And one of my hats is as an autistic person, another hat is an autistic researcher, another one is a father and a husband. And there are lots of different ways that these things can interact. I think when we talk about co-creation, I want to be clear, there's lots of different terminology in the research, and for those of you who know it, know there's about 17 different ways to describe co-creation. So when I'm talking about co-creation, I mean including people with lived experience across all the phases of research, not just in certain sections or in a tokenistic capacity. They're partners. And in a lot of my work, I've engaged with co-creation. And one of the reasons why I've done this is I'm one autistic person. And when you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. I know Maddie said it yesterday. And there are people in this room who were lived experience partners, co-creators on some of my work. And I want to thank you all for doing that. And why it's important is, as a researcher, whether you're an autistic researcher or not, you have a certain base knowledge. You have a certain base of experience that you can relate to. And you need to work with the community. And one of the reasons why this is some people might look and say, oh, you're an autistic researcher. You know all about autism. You can design this yourself. No, I know about my experience. I can't speak to the experiences of autistic women or indigenous autistics or racialized autistics or anything like that. So I want to include people from those groups because I want to learn too. I want them to engage and to help the work be more impactful. That is the key to me, is impact. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to just go ahead, plan a project, plan the research questions, you get the answer to your questions, and then what has it changed? But if you are directly working with the community you're finding out, okay, maybe the question that I had in mind isn't the most impactful question here. Maybe that question needs to be reworded. Maybe that question doesn't even need to be in the same postal code. Maybe we need to be doing something else. We need, as researchers, we need to be humble enough to realize that we are not omniscient on the community concerns. You know who are the experts? The people who are in the community. And even if you are part of the community, you represent a part of that community. So it's important to bring a diversity of voices and experiences. And for the second part of the question, which I believe was about...
Oh, I can let you know. Why is co-creation so important? Why is it still worth engaging in research?
Yeah, so it's really about impact, and I can really sympathize with the fact that engaging in research is tough. We ask a lot of people who participate in research, not just as participants, but as partners. We ask more of the people we partner with. And it is, in the work that I do, I want to balance that. I don't want to overburden people, but at the same time, I want the work to be impactful for the people that it's going to help. But so I want to make sure to not overwork or overburden anybody who wants to participate and engage. And at the same time, I want to make sure everything is respectful and it's done in a way that's going to be impactful. It's all about impact and like at the end of the day, especially if you're a parent or you're working full time and things like that, it's where do I find the time to get involved in research? And the reason is, if you can get involved, I'm not saying everyone has to, but if you can get involved, you can help us as researchers understand your experience. And if there's something that you would benefit from in terms of research being done or programs that are being evaluated or things like that, will it have a direct effect? Hopefully. But it's, if we don't hear from you, it's hard to know what your situation is. And so we really want to work with anyone who's willing to work with us. And even if you can only spend an hour a week or something on a consultation or just looking over a document or something to make sure it's respectful, that it's aimed at the right people who we need to hear from. Even if you can't spend more time with us, you can send us to people who might be in similar situations. I know that, sorry, I'm going long.
It's totally okay.
I just want to give one concrete example. In the Canadian Autistic Adult Needs Assessment Survey, which I did 2 years ago, one of the things that was critical, I think, to the engagement with over 1,900 autistic adults across the country was that our lived experience partners helped design the marketing and recruitment. And they advised on, where does this need to be posted? How does this need to be sent out? What accessibility concerns should we include in how we administer this? So it's absolutely critical, but we love to hear from you. I know I do. Thank you.
So I hope now you understand why I want you to think of me as Mackenzie's friend.
That's a good addition. No, and before we get to some table discussions, it's interesting because on the podcast episode where we talked about this priority area, Deep and I had a quick discussion about the James Lind Alliance and how there is definitely more of a appetite or a greater, I guess, this generation of researchers are embracing working more directly with community to determine what are those priority areas. And so there was a project done with the epilepsy priority needs, I believe it was called, where that community came together and said, these are the top 10 priorities that we have within our community of where we want to collect information and invest in research. And so I think that's optimistic that we're going perhaps in the same direction. Before I go to table discussions, I do want to turn it over to our panel to see if anybody would like to have anything else to add.
I think maybe, if I'm allowed, I will say two quick things. One is there are some fundamental difficulties with doing the data work well. And so I don't want to leave the room with illusions about if we said, oh, we agreed to actually combine data, off we go and we combine that, right? So our sectors are actually siloed for a reason, right? And often we are very good at saying, oh, if everybody wanted to come together, it will get resolved. No, there is legislature and there is other types of contractual issues and consent issues that should be taken very seriously when we are trying to combine data. But there are also technical solutions. So we're in an era of explosion of technical solutions. And there are technical solutions that can allow us to think about learning from all data without actually bringing all data together necessarily when we can't. So there are solutions to bring data together, and then there are solutions to learn from data even when we cannot bring it together, things like federated tools and so on for analytics. The second, so I would just say, if we are getting to a place where we all agreeing that data is an area we want to invest, especially with the new National Autism Network, it will take some patience, and it will take some work with technical people, with legal people, with ethical people to figure out what's possible, what's not possible, so everybody's patience. Everybody needs to come with patience on the table. The second comment I want to make is we haven't talked about Indigenous communities and Indigenous data at all, and we need to just not lose track of that. So Indigenous people own their data. Indigenous people can make decisions from their own data, and it's a question for me what the NAN network could do to facilitate infrastructure to allow our First Nations partners, our Métis partners, and Inuit partners to develop when they want the data infrastructure required to be able to answer their own questions. So when we talked about representation, I want to be a bit careful. Sometimes it's about representing the full diversity of the Canadian landscape in a data set, and sometimes it's about creating spaces where certain communities have their own data to make their own decisions, and I think our commitment from the national network should go to both.
Thank you so much. I know it's the end of the day, and everyone's very excited to get into table discussions for the next little bit. That was sarcasm. That didn't work very well. But I am hoping that, based on the conversation, if we could talk a little bit amongst our groups, I want to give people some extra time to have those conversations, so there's no obligation to report back at the end. There is members showcase following the session. I believe, John, it's 4:30 that starts? 5 o'clock. So if people for the next 25 minutes want to chat amongst their tables, or feel free to pull tables together or go to different tables to chat about, to follow up on a couple of questions. 4 might be a little bit difficult to tackle, but perhaps we could think about, and I think we'll have a QR code available as well on the screen. And I believe there will be laptops available too for those who would like to use them. What key insights or takeaways did you gather today from the panel discussion? And what do you feel are 1 to 2 immediate or short-term actionable steps that could help advance this priority area? So again, think within the next 6 months. And what are some longer-term initiatives that we could start to think and plan now? If you have time, we can also talk about what's missing in this conversation, and are there specific tactics or activities that the newly formed National Autism Network could help to facilitate or lead to help with community engagement. So I'll leave people to have those conversations and invite the panelists to walk around, or people can come up and ask them any questions they may have, and look forward to getting your feedback. And again, if you just follow the QR code, you'll be able to input your questions there or your answers there. Thank you so much, everybody. You're so welcome. I'm so happy I got to see you again.
But I had a different introduction than I thought you were gonna, but that's okay because we addressed it. You guys need a doctor. Go doctor. Don't worry though.
It did. I know. But when I
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you for everything you do. You're one of my favorite people. Like, you really are. I think
yeah.
we're so lucky to have your voice and your talent.
But it was good. It was great. Thank you for the question.
No, it's not.
And there's only so
You're very humble. Even on
I was hoping to get more into people calling to
So we need to ask them, like, if we don't ask them questions, if we don't ask questions, we don't know what they're thinking. But they'll do that at the table.
Well, they are going to do it at the tables, but do you want an opportunity for them to like feedback and ask questions? We can do that.
Whatever you guys want, it's the same. Yeah. Like here, it's what we said. We don't, if
Not
there's
about the
other-
action.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah. But if there are other things that people want to hear about, why don't we do the table work and then say people can report back and ask questions to panelists about specific actions? Do you guys were you prepared to do that?
I don't mind whatever you guys want, but if people have questions,
It's a challenge. Yeah.
Part of me wanted to abolish the table discussion and just say at the end of the day.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure it's like.
okay, he has to go. I'm not sure. Whatever you want to do, we do.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thanks, guys. I should have flagged you. Everyone, I just wanted to do a bit of a check-in. I know it's been a long day. We were supposed to wrap up at 5. It's 4:30 now, and I always want people to like me, so I'm suggesting that we may want to give everyone a little break before the showcase. But before we do that, I just wanted to check in to see, would anybody like to share any insights or anything that was discussed at their table? Because that would be cool too. Or if there was any burning question you had for the panelists. I just want to see how people are feeling, because I know it's been a long day, lots of heavy conversations. Corey, always have time for you. No, your voice is very loud, but let's give you a mic.
The microphone must have been set for Senator Bernard. One thing we talked about at our table, I couldn't really hear everything although the background noise, but when they asked me to talk, I kind of opened up like a bit of a firecracker, as I sometimes tend to do. When talking about surveillance and data and so on, why is it that some provinces like BC, I'm from BC, so I freely admit my bias, but I've been told by people who are experts, who are maybe also biased because they're involved with the data, that we at BC have some of the best data on autism, at least when it comes to children. Adults, that's a whole other story, don't get me started. Some provinces don't want to know the number. I just found that some provinces don't want to know the numbers because they're afraid that if the prevalence rate of autism is too low, they're going to have funding reduced. My point to getting all this is, we don't, like in 2018, Canada was saying 166 kids were autistic, and at that time BC was maybe 1 in 30 something. So why the huge difference? If autism, as far as we know, is genetic, not environmental. So it shouldn't matter the numbers, and none of it. BC, Prince Edward Island, Ontario should all be comparable. So we need to get everybody, there's 14 jurisdictions if you include the 10 provinces, 3 territories, and the feds. We need to get all on the same page like we've done for cancer, dementia, and everything else, and figure out a consistent, standardized way of collecting data. The numbers should be the same across the country or very similar. And that way we're taking it more seriously. I know that some ministries and stuff in some provinces are afraid that if the numbers don't look good, that they're going to have funding cut. And that's sad. That we're always worried that we're going to hide important data that could potentially save lives because we're worried about the government coming back and funding. That's shame on the government for creating that kind of intimidation. So, yeah, consistent data across the country, and there shouldn't be any threat, whatever it is, whether it's 1 in 1 or 1 in 10 billion, which it's not going to be, then the funding should be there. The numbers shouldn't matter.
Thank you, Corey. Would any of the panelists like to? Oh, Karen. Yes. Oh.
Yeah, I know you had a question about the BC numbers, and you did talk about, so what's unique about the numbers in British Columbia is that in British Columbia, we have a one door in to the autism funding programs. So once a child receives a diagnosis in the province, their parents typically sign what's called an autism agreement. And that's the only way to access what we have as autism funding. So when other provinces may have multiple doors into different types of services, we have one unique door. So we're able to count the exact, excuse me, the exact number of children who have received a diagnosis as long as their families have signed a autism agreement. Now, you asked about the difference between, say, 2018 numbers and when BC puts out their numbers. BC's numbers are sort of right at that moment. Our numbers come out every December of each year. Past numbers, such as the CDC numbers in the States and other numbers in other provinces, look back. Yeah, I'm okay. I don't know what's going on. It's fine. Aspirating or something. Other numbers, when you look back, they do file reviews on previous years. So if you take a look at the BC numbers in 2022, they'll be very similar to the numbers that are put out by, say, the CDC or other provinces in that exact year. Our numbers are just more recent and timely because we have instant access to the number of children who have received a diagnosis. But I agree with you. We need to have across Canada consistency way to talk about those numbers, and we need to start understanding those numbers a little better by going, in BC now, children between ages of 6 and 18, it's 1 in 25, and that's 1 in 17 boys. And that's the actual number of kids who have been diagnosed. That's not an estimate, it's not a sort of an average, it's the actual number. And so we need to better understand what that means in terms of service delivery and the needs of that population. So that's, sorry, I wasn't on the panel though.
You could have been, though.
One of the things we talked about at our table was the challenge, not just of a public information campaign to get people to recognize data is not a dirty word and get people to buy into that, but also to create trust with the public, but also create trust with researchers, because a lot of researchers are hesitant to share data because they're worried somebody's going to scoop their research area or they're going to misrepresent it when they publish it. And so I want to encourage us to look at the format that the Pond Network has been doing with sharing the research, and we're all collecting the same things and we're all on the same team. So I hope maybe we could scale that up outside of Ontario and take that approach.
Thank you. We're going to go with the panelists first there, Hugh.
So I appreciate the comment. I would say trust is a complicated thing. I think commitment to open science, obviously, and appreciate the shout out, but there's lots of people here who are committed to open science, is one way to do it. Like that our data goes in the public domain, not for anybody to do whatever they want with it. They still need to show that they have approval by their own ethics board and have an appropriate proposal to actually access the data, but we leave it out there for any scientist to be able to access it and explore it in different ways, right? So that we can all learn together. But I'm not sure this is at the core of the trust issue, right? So that's part of the trust problem, like the data being non-transparent. I think we need to recognize the moment that we are in. The trust issue is not special to our space. Like there is a lot of concern about how little trust there is in science and how policy is separated from evidence. And so we need to acknowledge we're in a kind of a cultural moment where people have actually second-guessed the value of science in improving their lives. And we have to do a lot of work to show in concrete manners how science can actually lead to a good life for neurodivergent people. And we also need to partner better. And we've been talking about this. Like, if we don't co-design this National Autism Network, if we don't co-design what data, for whom, who owns, all of these things, we will have failed, right? It's a moment where I think there is more than ever, there is a bit of a need for us to say we're all partners in the data acquisition, in the data interpretation, in how the data gets used. We need to claim, like we need to earn the trust back. We have lost trust, we need to earn it back. And this is critical, I think, to the work that we're going to do in this network.
I wrote things down this time, so I didn't go too far. So our table talked about a number of things. And sorry, for context, those of you that don't know me, I'm Karen Tim. I'm the founder of the Neurodivergent Infinity Network of Educators. And we work beyond walls and borders to foster neuro-affirming practice and education and beyond. So one of the things we talked about at our table was amplify autistic researchers, first and foremost. We don't need to be reinventing the wheel, right? Like, we know there's monotropism. We know about double empathy problem. We know about autistic masking. We know the minority stress model has been, applied to autistic populations. There are tremendous autistic researchers out there internationally, and we need to be amplifying and extending their work, not starting over, because the wheel was already set in motion. It's going everywhere. And what we learned in the pandemic, really, is that, yes, together we're better, because autistics all around the world connected with each other, and we created networks, and we found each other, and we created spaces of belonging, right? So there's huge networks out there. There are fantastic resources out there. We need to really extend the work that's already being done and amplify it, right? So that means accessing those pieces, but also reducing the barriers. So when there are people who are trying to go through post-secondary and they've had barrier after barrier after barrier because their profs don't get it, because they're not speaking the same language, even though many of us are years ahead in terms of neuroaffirming practices, but when you have to teach your profs some of the language and they still don't understand identity first language after 12 weeks, right? Some of these things are kind of ridiculous, really. The other piece is like age groups that are missed, right? And I'm fortunate, I'm sitting at a table with, an autistic researcher who's done a lot of work on menopause, autistic, right? So these are some key areas that have to be looked at. I can't remember if I even mentioned the ethical standards piece. There are established principles, again, from autistic-led researchers all around the world, and when we do autistic-led research, and I say autistic-led research because it is autistic-led. I'm not talking about we join in and we're tokenly represented. I'm talking there is reason why autistics should be analyzing the data, collecting the data, because it's a lot safer when you are an autistic doing research on autistics, but also as a participant, because we can have those open conversations. We can communicate in our own ways, right? And not feel like we have to mask. All of these things are normalized. The defaults are already established, right? But the ethical standards for ethical research on autistic ways of being exist, right? So we need to be doing that. And, oh yeah, and just further to yesterday, feels like a week ago, right? But the mention about, we don't have the information about autistic educators, and I did mention yesterday that we do, it exists, but again, it may not be in Ottawa, it may not be in, New Brunswick or where, but it exists, and so we need to build on that, right? If Dr. Rebecca Wood led the Autistic School Staff Project, then we should be digging into that. We should be doing the literature reviews and moving on from that, right? Yeah. Anyway, there you go.
Thank you. Geeta, do you want to?
I promise I'll be really quick. I'm not a data policy analyst. I work in our provincial strategy.
Closer to the mic there.
Okay. How's this? Is it better?
Is that good?
Okay. I am now not a data policy analyst, and I work in our provincial strategy, and our table was talking about what would that look like if it's not autistic specific. So neurodevelopmental differences in general, and acknowledging co-occurring conditions, acknowledging the complexities. And just as I'm hearing people speak over the past few days, it makes me wonder how can systems be transparent and know what's being collected, why it's being collected, and what's going to be done with it? And I really appreciate the panel's experience and how they're sharing about the complexity of all of it. And so I'm excited to hear what is going to happen. It also makes me wonder, centering the living experience in the center of that, and how to make that data and the metrics talk, meaning having that data paired with living experience and stories, and what does that look like from a provincial level and a national level to translate that to knowledge mobilization and engaging others in that story.
No, I like that. I think that's, again, it's the knowledge translation, and that's a key part to people wanting to be willing or being willing to take part in research, is that they see themselves reflected in the actual initiative and the results and the end impact. So I'm so sorry. Come on up. Come on up, yeah.
I just wanted to make a comment. We kind of touched on it at the table, but I'm going to go a little further. In this room, we're talking about collaboration, and obviously we're all here. But what I've found about academia is it doesn't collaborate. And I just wonder, within this system that we're talking about creating, a piece of it needs to be convincing other academics to collaborate. And there's this base kind of idea that our research is ours. And in projects that I've worked on, I can't access research in order to write what I need to write. And these are simple projects that really don't have the health data that's sensitive or the names attached. It's that it's kept internal. So do we need kind of that advocacy to make internal data public? Do we need advocacy to encourage other academics to share? So we can be really intersectional within the disciplines. And that's kind of my thought, right? Because we have this great collaboration in here, but it's not outside the room.
Thank you so much. I'm going to bring up our lovely MC to wrap up today's events. Do you need the mic, or do you have your own mic?
It's okay. Chris is used to it. I've been waving at him all day long. We have this vibe. Thank you, Allie. It's fun. Look at this. We're sharing a stage at completely opposite ends. If only we had one more person.
Who could we bring up?
Who might want to join us on stage to wrap up the day? If only there was someone.
Named Hugh.
Do you think we should bring Hugh up on stage? Let's give a little bit of silent encouragement.
Can I beatbox?
I don't think beatboxing is. If we're not clapping, we're not going to beatbox, I think. He's a wonderful beatboxer. So we're going to let our MC take the lead, though.
Want to come up here with me? Because maybe.
Can I?
Well, here.
Boom, boom, boom.
We're not going to. So how about your contribution? Would you like to tell people where they can hear your music?
You guys can hear my music in the member showcase.
Like you needed another reason to go.
And
is that right after today? You're going to be there? Oh my gosh.
And it's his musician name is Disco H. There will be signage and earphones, most importantly, so you can choose to opt in to the beats. All right, so let's.
I met Disco H. That is amazing. That is super exciting. Woo! Well, now we have to, come on. If you were on the fence, I'd hope that really sealed the deal for you. I'm pretty excited. This has been a heck of a day, hasn't it? We have a lot to process tonight. There has been a lot talked about, a lot said, a lot presented, a lot tossed around, a lot sparkled out outside of us. And if you're a deep thinker like I am, it can take a little while. We can take a little extra time to fully process. And if you're the type that might wake up at 3 in the morning and say, wait a minute, I did have a comment. Same is what I'm going to say. Feel free to DM me on LinkedIn. I'll probably be awake too and thinking about everything. But that's part of what makes us awesome, because sometimes those really great ideas and comments come, hours after the fact when they would have been so witty, but it's still awesome, and I'm just so grateful for everyone today. And if you are feeling inspired by some of these conversations and you're not quite ready to pack it in for the night, then join me around the corner. We're going to hang out for another couple hours and enjoy the music of Disco I'm going to be honest. I snuck a peek around the corner at the setup while you were all in here having very important and, serious discussions. So I snuck a peek at all the goods on the silent auction table, and there's some artists already setting up with their wares that they've got to sell, and I might have already put something aside. I didn't buy it yet, though, so if you want to fight me for it, we could talk. I don't want to cheat. But it's definitely great, and the bar's getting set up, so I'm pretty excited about that. And just to do a quick little callback to the morning, consider me your mistress of connection tonight, because somehow I've still got energy. It might crash horrifically at 7 o'clock when the event is over, but take advantage for now, and we'll have some great conversations and meet some people, and we'll keep the bids flowing and the energy growing and all of that magic moving right at the end of our fingertips for another couple of hours. So some quick thank yous to wrap up the night. Thank you to the generous sponsors that help make this day possible. The Cine Family Foundation, woo, huge hello everyone. If you're still on the live stream, thanks for hanging in there with us. Joyce Family Foundation, thank you again. Hamilton Health Sciences Foundation, I'm going to talk about you a lot more tomorrow. Azraeli Foundation as well. And thank you to all 16 of those wonderful sponsors. There's some great exhibitors to talk to in the other room. Thanks to all of our speakers, panelists, and moderators. I want to thank you not just for the information shared, but for the care that you brought into this space and the vulnerability that was shown, because it's with that honesty, whether we're sharing great things or frustrations, it's still worth it. It's still where things are going to build out of. And it's been such a beautiful day of that. Thank you, of course, to all of our wonderful tech staff and our banquet staff that kept everything running so smoothly. We're 10 minutes early. This never happens at conferences. You're going to have time to go to the bathroom. Gosh, that's good. Thanks to the Alliance staff. I'm really blown away with what you pulled off here, considering, I'm just going to Kermit everything of the last little while. This is pretty impressive. And finally, thanks to you. The support and acceptance in this room today has been palpable. And I know I'm not alone when I say that I needed this. I need this right now. So thank you for being here with all of your vulnerability, your ideas, your frustrations, your complaints, your compliments. Thanks for every single person that mentioned my dress. It's by Hell Bunny. It's pretty great. And before we close out for the night, I want to leave you with one final reminder that advocacy needs bold ideas and it needs strong voices, but most of all, it needs thriving people. So tonight, give yourself permission to rest, recharge, and refuel, so tomorrow we can all return ready, all jazz hands on deck for another day to fight the good fight. I'm Kristen Light, and it has been an absolute honor to share this day with you. So let's go celebrate a bit more in the other room. Thanks so much, everyone.